Mr. Goldilocks himself, James Hooper, mentioned 84,000 times last season how he thought Moses was going to leave the Eels, but it turns out the other half has decided he wants to go first. Dylan Brown's agent Chris Orr has emailed rival clubs to seek expressions of interest for the Kiwi 5'8 services for 2026 and beyond. It seems the player options have striked again for the Parramatta Eels because they said he's signed until 2031.
Nope.
This is a massive blow to the Eels. They just lost their young gun Blaze Talagi and they also just got rid of their captain, so it isn't the greatest of signs early on for Jason Riles. The club has really mishandled their roster post the 2022 grand final, and after, let's be fair income here, very disappointing seasons the last couple years, I can kind of see why he would want to go out, and when you put those options in his favour, you can understand why the big dog has decided he wants to see what else can tickle his fancy. Look, there is still a good chance Brown might stay, but after the season they just had without the star halfback and the sacking of the only coach he's ever had, you understand why a player who will get a ton of attention on the market is just wanting to see what the interest looks like. It's still not great though if you're an Eels fan, because I understand that you're probably yourself right now, and I do not blame you. The timing of it is really interesting to see how it works out. Either he wants to get a deal done now because he wants to sort out his future with the club or without the club just to kill the speculation for the Eels before the season even starts, or maybe he just wants to get out of the joint ASAP. Because on top of the sacking of Brad Arthur, he has also lost the only captain he's ever played under, and I know a lot of Eels fans have disagreed with this, but from the outside looking in, it very much does feel like Parramatta did everything they can to try and get rid of Clint Gutherson. That probably won't sit well with someone like Brown, who just saw Gutherson play through broken ribs and a leg injury that needed surgery just to make sure his team avoided the embarrassment of getting a wooden spoon just 2 years after making a grand final. And throwing even more fire onto this little Bernie patch at the gather at the end of the beach, Dylan Brown is coming off a partial ACL tear he suffered in that spoon bowl, so he will be fit for round one, but after that injury first happened, it was reported as a full ACL rupture. Now, I don't know if that would play on the mind of a professional athlete, which may shock some of you, but it is quite weird that a player who just suffered that much of a hectic injury wouldn't just accept the player option that they currently have for over $1 million. It's not like Brown set the world on fire last year. He has had a few disappointing seasons now after how good he was in 2022 on the Eels' run to the grand final. I do think there is very much a world where he does stay, but I do tend to lean towards the fact that he may be headed elsewhere, and I do think it's probably a situation where it's not so much Jill is desperate to leave the Eels, he just wants to go to that club, and I think we all know what club I just talked about. But before we do talk about that dump, let's speculate wildly and live in a fantasy world where the NRL salary cap actually works and talk about some destinations that I think would be kind of cool. And let's start off with the obvious one, the People's Club, the Waz. That would be so awesome. Talk about the perfect Shaun Johnson replacement. As much as the Fish is undoubtedly now their best player, they have lost the face of that entire organisation. And with the sudden retirement of Tohu Harris, who is one of the best forwards of the modern era, as well as SJ retiring so late last year, surely the boys from the Dutch have a ton of money in their salary cap to play with. They have Luke Metcalf, they have Tanner Boyd as halfback options, and you can't tell me that pairing Dill Brown next to 2023 Luke Metcalf with CNK out the back with RTS on the sting, that doesn't get New Zealand as hard as Dwayne Johnson. The Knights would be another team that would be awesome to see Dylan Brown go to, and surely they have money available. They just lost Leo Thompson, who they reportedly offered 800 to 900k per season for. Hastings, Gamble, and Cogger can't be on a big wicket, and KP is screaming for a second superstar to take the pressure off of him. Prime KP next to the best version of Dylan Brown, the Brickies are going to sell out even more games than they already do. If you are just talking about just money, I think the Dolphins are probably the team that can throw the most money at Dylan Brown, and without Wayne, it does feel like like this is going to be a big turning point for the Dolphins. They need a second marquee signing to put next to Hammer. Even when they signed Hammer, he wasn't the marquee signing that they thought he was going to be. They've been waiting to land a big fin. D Brown can be that big fin, especially considering how much better he can get. He's still super young and what he's already shown us. My smoky pick is the Raiders. It would be great to finally see a superstar spine member go down there and take charge with that monster forward pack, with players that are young guns like Weeks, Savage, and Strain to learn from. But then also Dill would have to move to Canberra, and I'm not going to be that mean to the bloke. Those teams would be sick, especially the Warriors, the Newcastle Knights. If Dylan Brown went there, that would just make the competition as well as those teams so much better to watch. But yeah, we all know he's going to the Roosters. A part of me did think it would be funny not to even mention them in this video, but at least feels like to me this signing could get announced tomorrow. Brown would be the perfect half to play next to Sam Walker. They have all the cap room in the world, the Roosters, and that's scary considering they make these crazy signings when it seems they literally have no cap room. I don't need to go into too much details why this makes sense for both Brown and the Roosters. They've missed out on Hunt, they lost May, and we all know they've been hunting a big fish, especially in the halves, for a while now. They just got Reece Robson. Walker will be fit and firing for 2026, and at least for now, Teddy is looking as good as he ever has and is still very much a top 3 fullback. If they have the premiership roster, it's not a huge move for Dylan Brown, and he can pretty much become the New Zealand poster boy for the club that has undoubtedly the most power in the NRL, because they literally train right next to NRL headquarters. When are we going to investigate that? So if I had to guess, and not just guess, if I had to put money on it, I would probably throw down a stack of money that Dylan Brown is going to be joining the Chookies from 2026. Because as much as we've heard rumors about KB and Mitchell Moses, and those two would be bigger signings, from a roster standpoint, this actually makes so much sense on paper and makes me physically ill. But ladies and gentlemen, where do you see Dylan Brown ending up? Will he stay with the Eels, or has he already got one foot out the door? Do you think he's going to the Roosters like me, or do you think there is hope for the NRL salary cap after all? Let me know in that comment section down below. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet already. We got more preseason content coming your way, including my predictions where I release the actual NRL script in just 2 weeks' time.